Hello and welcome to the 12 Months Marathon Podcast with me, John Hill, the running podcast for the over 35s with marathon dreams, episode 77, how to deal with marathon training jitters. So what's going on with me at the moment? Well, quite ironically, I am just finishing up week 3 of my marathon training cycle. A lot of you listening to this will be either just starting out or deep into the throes of your marathon training as well, which is why I wanted to do this particular episode this week. It's kind of a dump, really, if I use that expression, because for those of us here in the UK, some of us have been really impacted by the weather this week. Snow, ice, and conditions that aren't really suitable, in my opinion, for effective running. I'll talk about that in a second, but I think if you are at a place where sometimes you do get adversely affected by the weather, it means you can't run outdoors. Now, I've done a few runs on a treadmill myself. I'm not one of these people that subscribes to a certain way of thinking. I think if you have to run on a treadmill, you have to run on a treadmill. It's just what you've got to do to get the miles in. And I know a lot of people who actually do the majority of the training on treadmills and still do okay. So that's a side issue. But what I want to talk about really is if you are struggling a little bit with your training and things have knocked you off course a little bit, this is for you because it's for me as well. So a little bit of background, because if you're on social media and you're a runner, of course you get bombarded with running content, and that's just the nature of the beast. And that varies from everything from, some inspirational guy or girl starting out on their journey of losing weight and becoming a runner to people sharing them doing, 5k intervals at, 2.5 minute kilometre pace. And you get all sorts of a mix, and you've got to deal with that as part of being on social media. That's how the world works, and we have to accept that. Now, what that can do to you, I think, is it can make you question yourself, because for me personally, I hold myself to a very high standard. I class myself as a role model. If people look at me, I coach people, so in various different guises. So I do class myself as a bit of a role model. So it upsets me when I can't do the stuff that I want to do and follow a plan completely, because, for example, this week, as a mix here in the UK, we've had ice, we've had snow, we've had conditions that mean I will not run when it's icy outside, dangerously icy, because the risk of injury for me far outweighs any sort of bravado or any sort of, pseudo heroics you get from trying to run in adverse conditions. And I will touch on that for you. And this is without judgment, by the way, to any individual. This is just what I think from my experience. So that, coupled with the fact that I've been tired, and that's also impacted me as well, and you haven't really got time for that. So it's like, well, I didn't really have a great night's sleep last night for whatever reason, but I've got an interval session today. And when you're over 35, I'm nearly 50, you haven't necessarily got the luxury of being able to just push through as much as you'd like, because you will be impacted. Now, for those of you who followed my journey on this podcast for a few weeks, you'll know when I did High Rocks, out of nowhere, I didn't sleep the night before. So after all this training, all this work that I'd done, the best preparation for a High Rocks I'd ever done, I didn't sleep the night before. And regardless of what anybody says, because I did get a comment online, somebody said, it doesn't matter because most athletes don't sleep the night before an event and they just get on with it. Not useful, not helpful, not useful, pointless. We're not athletes. Most of the people that I work with are parents. They've got jobs, responsibilities, and they're trying to run alongside that. So it's not as easy just to pretend that you are an athlete or some screaming motivational speaker who can just run through walls. That's not us. We are normal human beings trying our best. I perform at a very good level and I hold myself to that standard. And unfortunately, and I should know better, I compare myself to really fast runners because that's the circle that I want to move in. I perform at a decent level for my age, but when that decent level drops, for whatever reason, I get inside my own head and start questioning everything. So this week, for example, on what day was it? So Tuesday, I think it was, as I record this, it's Friday now. I was supposed to do a interval session. I was supposed to do just a normal 8-mile run, for example. So I did that on the treadmill at a relative pace. Now, it was a little bit soul-destroying, an hour on the treadmill in the gym staring at a mirror, but I did it, and that was okay. Now, I don't run with music, which is probably a lesson I need to take forward if I'm going to do this in the gym, but it was particularly difficult. Not physically, I was okay physically, but of course, I was tired, so I decided to swap my interval session out for that. So on the Wednesday, I said, right, I'm going to go in and do these intervals, which were mile repeats. So I did them on the treadmill. It was still too icy outdoors. Did them on the treadmill, and completely bombed after the first interval. Physically, mentally, there was a compound effect of a few things. So I did 4 miles on the treadmill. I did one interval. So I did 1 mile, and then I did 4 miles on the treadmill and 6 miles on the stationary bike, just to give me something while I was in the gym. And again, I had that dread, that feeling of, well, you're not going to perform at the level you want to perform at because you haven't done what you were supposed to do. And the reason why I share that with you is not to complain, because I've been down this road before and I know exactly what I'm doing. It's to reassure you that it's okay to have these moments, particularly when you're doing your first marathon, because it's something new. There's a lot of volume. And if you are over 35 and you have got all this stuff going on, it is a struggle, particularly again when you're getting bombarded with stuff about people performing at different levels. You don't know what their circumstances are. They could be, 20 and have no responsibilities or whatever it might be, and that's okay, but that's not you. So we have to weigh that up. So in the previous 2 weeks of training, this is the third week, I managed to hit my mileage target on both weeks, even though I had to adjust a couple of runs due to conditions. And this week I'm probably going to be a little bit short. I managed to get a run outdoors. Today I haven't ran. The snow was about 20 to 30 centimeters here, so I had a 3 mile walk. Sorry, which felt like a bit of strength and conditioning walking in the snow to go and buy some stuff from the store. So that was where we're at now. I think for me, it's important to know that when you're marathon training and you've got at least a 16-week plan, it's a 16-week plan for a reason. So if you do have a bit of a wobble early on, you can make it up later on. It's fine, because ultimately, most effective marathon plans have a peak phase, which usually is 9 to 14 weeks in. And if you can make up for any early jitters in that peak phase, you're going to make up for anything you've missed. The problem is when we make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions or situations. We start to think that we can't do it because we've had a bad week. Now, some of the things that have hampered me this week have been psychological as well as physical. And it's the psychological that causes the problems, because yesterday, as I record this, I managed to get a run outdoors because the ice had pretty much gone. It warmed up slightly. It was still cold, but it warmed up slightly. But the roads and the circumstances weren't as treacherous, which meant that I was able to get out and actually do a decent-ish run outdoors, which felt great. But before I went, I had this dread come over me, like, I'm not a real runner, I'm going to struggle to get back at it. And it's amazing how, no matter how experienced you are, how far down the road you are, these things grab you and grip you, and it's fast. And then, of course, this is interesting, because literally there is somebody I know who is not that far from where I am here, probably 20 miles from me here, 25 miles away, and they have zero snow. And it's mad how, like, in a country, like, you can live quite close to somebody and then have such a varying difference. And then it's weird, that is, because you think to yourself, well, what's going on? Because and the reason why I say that is because I've seen other people, say on Strava or whatever it might be, or Instagram, posting stuff about, I did this run, I did that run, who live in the same country as me. And I'm like, well, how on earth did you do a run? Because it was snowing and it was blah, blah, blah. Now, I won't run in the ice and snow. As I said, it's not because I can't perform at the level I want to perform at. I'm not going to do it for any sort of bravado. I'm not going to do it to show off or anything like that, because it's pointless, because I can't concentrate. And if I'm doing a fast run, I'm not going to slip over and break my ankle and risk, knocking my entire training schedule off, as I've said before. So if you want to do that, that's absolutely fine. No judgment from me. But my recommendation is always, you've got to do what you've got to do. If that's got to be a treadmill, that's got to be whatever, then that's just what you've got to do to get the job done. But remember, this is the long game. And the mindset, the wobbles, the jitters, all these things are perfectly normal. What it's not saying is that you can't do this. It's just saying, this is what you've got to negotiate, because I would not want anybody who I work with or who follows me or any of that to go down the bravado route and try and hurt themselves. Marathon training, you have got to learn to train under fatigue. Yeah, that's the nature of the beast. That's what we've got to do, and you have to accept that. However, that's got its limits as well, because if you're like me and you've got a function, you've got a family and you've got things going on, you can't always do that, yeah? And you get no medals for that. It's not like, oh yes, I exhausted myself and burnt myself out. That's not a good thing. So you've got to get this fine balance between, yes, I have to learn to run under fatigue, versus I can't hurt myself or really burn out or end up really resenting the process. So if you are in a place where it is difficult to get out and run because of weather, because of conditions, look at it as an overall strategy and say, okay, sometimes I've just got to accept that for now and then see how I can move things around accordingly. I'll give you an example. So last week I did 12 laps of a local park of mine. I'm fortunate that it's quite a big park, so it wasn't like smaller laps, which were a little bit soul destroying. And there was about 12 to 15 people in the park doing it as well, because they knew they couldn't run on the road, which again was a good thing. So it actually made it okay, and it was cold, but it was a nice day. So sometimes you've got to do that, which meant I hit my mileage targets for last week, so that was a good thing. And I'm already thinking about the weekend. I'm supposed to be doing a long run on Sunday. I'm supposed to be doing a longish run tomorrow. And I'm like, how am I going to do this? The thing is, you've got to sometimes just accept that things are not going to go your way in the short term, but you have to look at it as more of a longer term thing. So another example of this is I run a group fitness program as well as part of what I do for my running coaching. And I've cancelled the sessions today, not because exercising outdoors in the snow is a problem. It's the getting to the place. It's the roads, it's the travel. Like, for example, people are struggling to get out of my road here because it's on a slight gradient. So what you don't want to do is smash your car up or hurt yourself just because you're trying to force something. It's the same with running. You don't want to break your ankle, break your leg, or end up in the hospital because you're trying to force something, whereas you can move things around, or you can go on a treadmill. So the message is, no matter what adversity you may face at the start of the cycle, if you keep going, keep showing up when you can, keep doing the work, keep following your plan, you will get there. And this is the benefit of having a plan. Any plan. I mean, I believe there are more effective plans than others, but you can make up for this kind of stuff later. So it's okay if you are having a bit of a wobble at the start. Now, I wanted to do this today because I just wanted to get a bit of a vent out there, and hopefully this mirrors back what some of you may be feeling, because it is challenging, it is difficult. I've had so many people message me on Instagram and go, I rage quit on a run because I was frustrated because it was icy or snowing or whatever else, and I'm trying to, do my best. And trust me, you are. All I would say is that don't think this is a permanent problem, because it's not. Because particularly here in the UK, the weather, I think, of the weekend is going to turn itself around, and it's going to be absolutely fine, and it's going to work its way through, and it's going to be okay. And there's people around the world who do marathons in all sorts of conditions and do it or whatever. But key takeaways are, number one, be careful what you consume, and be careful that you feel like you're doing something wrong when you're not. That's the most important thing. Secondly, it's a process. And the compound effect, which is a previous podcast that I did, which is one of my most popular ones, is about how it all adds up together. And you've got to be a bit patient with yourself, and you've got to give yourself time, and you will work out. Just as I record this really helps me as well, so thank you for listening. It helps me get out of my own head and say, okay, calm down, chill out, things will be okay. Get some rest. My foot still hurts a little bit. You'll know that I dropped a sandbag on my foot in November, which has been fine outdoors, but actually weirdly on the treadmill, the pounding has actually aggravated it a little bit, which is fascinating as well. So that's another thing. I can do. Right, let that recover a little bit. Let me recover a little bit. I've been here before. I know what I'm doing. Head down. Get focused for next week, get what I can do this week, get this snow out of the way and get cracking. Again, it's a long-term process and you'll be fine, as long as you don't think the problem is you personally. It's not, it's your performance. And secondly, like it's a long-term problem, it's not. It's a short-term thing that you can definitely overcome. So if you want more support, or you want to have a chat or message me, feel free to do so at 12 Months to Marathon over on Instagram as well, where you can follow me over there for your daily content and tips. I appreciate it. If you head to my bio when you're there as well, and you're over 35, you can join my free online community for the over 35s there. We can take you away from the noise of social media and we can connect there. If you're new to the podcast, please subscribe to it. I do appreciate that. It really helps me. And also drop me a review on Apple or Spotify. Again, that's really, really useful. And also sharing it as well if you've got any running friends who might benefit from this type of thing. So keep your head down, keep going. It's the long game. There's a reason why the expression it's a marathon, not a sprint, because it is. And again, feel free to get in touch if you need any support or help. So thank you very much for listening as always, and I look forward to speaking to you all again very soon indeed.